exaggerated. They make promises that they may try to fulfill, but then it turns out to be harder than they expected. They pump up the things that they did that were good. They downplay the things that didn't work out so good. They try to put a positive spin on things. And by the way, before you get too down on politicians, we all do that now. You know, when I'm talking to Michelle, sometimes I'm all like, oh, honey, man, do you see I did all the dishes? You know, and she's all like, yeah, but that's like the first time you've done that in a week. What'd you do wrong? And I said, well, we all do that to some degree, right? I mean, it's human nature. But what we have not seen before, in our recent public life at least, is politicians just blatantly, repeatedly, baldly, shamelessly lying, making stuff up, calling up down, calling black white. That's what your governor's doing with these ads, just making stuff up. What he's saying is not true. And by the way, that's what Republicans in Congress are doing all across the country. On this pre-existing condition thing, they're running ads everywhere saying, we're the ones protecting it. It's not true. The president said he'd pass a middle-class tax cut before the next election. Congress isn't even in session. He just makes it up. He says, I'm going to protect your pre-existing conditions, while his Justice Department is in court right now trying to strike down those protections. That is not spin. That's not exaggeration. That's not trying to put a positive glow on things. That's lying. And look, it'd be one thing if it was the first time, but they've done this often. They just and accompanying making stuff up, they then try to scare the heck out of people before every election. It's always something a little bit different. And then suddenly the election comes and the problem that they were scaring you about is suddenly magically gone. You never hear it about it again. All right, so let me just kind of run through this just to jog your memory. In the 2010 midterms, it was government bureaucrats are going to kill your grandma. Remember the death panels? Just made it up, but that was a thing. 2014, Ebola is going to kill all of us. Remember that? In the last election, it was Hillary's emails. This is terrible. Hillary's emails. We were hearing emails everywhere. This is a national security crisis. They didn't care about emails. And you know how you know? Because if they did, they'd be up in arms right now as the Chinese are listening to the president's iPhone that he leaves in his golf cart. It turns out it wasn't, I guess it wasn't that important. They scared you about the deficits. Now the latest thing, they're trying to convince everybody to be afraid of a bunch of impoverished, malnourished refugees 1,000 miles away. That's the thing that is the most important thing in this election. Not health care, not whether or not folks are able to retire, not doing something about higher wages or rebuilding our roads and bridges and putting people back to work. Suddenly, it's this group of folks, we don't even know where they are. They're way down there. That's the biggest thing. And you know, as soon as the election's over, everybody will be like, what happened? We were being invaded. Where'd it go? And you know what? It would be funny, except they do it every time, And too often it works. Everybody gets all freaked out. And we got to stop falling for this stuff. We're like Charlie Brown with the football. You can't fall for that okie doke. Don't be hoodwinked. Don't be bamboozled. Wisconsin, don't fall for that kind of fear mongering. Because while they are distracting you with all this stuff, they're robbing you blind. They're giving tax cuts out to billionaires. They don't want you to notice that. Look, look, look over there. They're sabotaging your health care. Wait, look, look. They're letting big polluters rewrite our laws that keep our air and water clean. Ignore that. Look, look, over there. It's like a con where, a door-to-door salesman tries to sell you a security system while his buddy sneaks in the back, takes all your stuff. It's like Home Alone. You remember that movie? Joe Pesci's sidekick, he's trying to sneak in the doggy door. I guess you're too young for that. But you know what? There's a more important point here. When words stop meaning anything, when people can just make up anything, democracy doesn't work. Society can't work. If you can just say anything and there are no consequences if it turns out what you're saying is not true, well, how are we going to have any kind of accountability? And frankly, part of the problem is that we've gotten used to it. We just expect that, people just are going to just make stuff up. We just expect it. And part of the problem, frankly, is that a big portion of the media right now are used to it. And a part of them just repeat the lies over and over again. I promise you, Fox News will not tell you that what the Republicans are saying about pre-existing conditions aren't true. But you know what? It'd be nice if the serious outlets did and weren't distracted by the same kinds of fear-mongering that was done every election cycle. But I guess they can't help themselves, so they just cover it. So until we start getting a little bit better about calling a lie, the only check we've got on this behavior is you and your vote. And I know during elections, it's natural for us to talk about Democrat and Republican, that's part of how the democratic process works. And obviously, I really think you should vote for Democrats, because our policies will actually make a positive difference in people's lives, and we actually do fight for the little guy. Rather than let Republicans keep attacking unions, Democrats will stand up for every worker's right to organize for higher wages and stronger benefits. And rather than let Republicans side with big banks while they're gutting the public university system, Democrats will invest in our public schools and help more Wisconsin students earn a higher degree without going broke. But there's something at stake in this election that goes beyond party. What is at stake is a politics that is decent and honest and lawful and tries to do right by people, and that's worthy of this country we love. Because it shouldn't be Democratic or Republican to say we don't just make stuff up. It shouldn't be Democratic or Republican to say you don't punish political opponents or threaten the freedom of the press just because you don't like what they say or write about you. It shouldn't be Democratic or Republican to say we don't target certain people based on how they look or how they pray. It shouldn't be. I love you too, but I'm making a point right now. You know what? I've got to believe that there are compassionate conservatives out there who think that there's nothing compassionate about ripping immigrant children from their mothers at the borders and leaving them in a cold cell. And I know there have to be people who consider themselves fiscally conservative who don't think there's anything fiscally responsible about trillion-dollar deficits. I've got to believe that there are people of all political stripes who think it's wrong when you say deficits don't matter when you're helping rich people and pretend that somehow they matter a lot when you're trying to help working people. There've got to be people, I don't care what your party is, who think it's wrong to spend 8 years trying to take away people's health care and then spend the final weeks before an election pretending you're Florence Nightingale. There've got to be people who say that's not how politics should operate. I've got to believe that there's certain things that transcend party, and that whatever your political background, I'm hoping you think it's wrong to hear people spend years, months, vilifying people, questioning their patriotism, calling them enemies of the people, and then suddenly you're concerned about civility. Please. And by the way, we don't need more mealy-mouthed elected officials who claim they're disappointed by this bad behavior, but then don't do anything about it and just go along with it. We need leaders who will actually stand up for what's right, regardless of party. Leaders who will fight for you and what's best in the American spirit. Patriots who will stand up for anyone whose fundamental rights are at stake, whether it's your health care or your kids getting bullied in school because their last name is different, or a neighbor who's being harassed because of who they love. Wisconsin, that's what all of us need to stand up for, with clarity and patriotism and purpose. The values that bind us to our fellow citizens. The values your mom taught you and your dad taught you that somehow we just ignore. What's happened? We got to get back to that, just basic stuff. We can have disagreements, but there has to be a certain code. There has to be certain rules in terms of how we treat each other and operate in the public sphere. And that's what Americans do. That's what Americans do. That's who we are. That's what America is at its best. And that's what these candidates believe. That's what Tammy believes. That's what Tony believes. That's what Randy and Dan believe. And that's why I'm hopeful, Wisconsin. I am hopeful, despite all the noise and the lies and the distractions, that we're going to cut through all that and remember who we are, who we're called to be. I am hopeful that out of this political darkness, a great awakening of citizenship is happening all across the country. I can't tell you how encouraged I've been watching so many people get involved for the first time, or for the first time in a very long time, marching and organizing, registering people to vote, folks running for office themselves, record numbers of women vote who are running, young veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan, Americans who might not have been interested in politics before, but suddenly laced up their shoes, or if you're Randy, they kept their work boots on. But he traded in his tool belt for a clipboard because they believe this time is different. This moment's too important to sit out. The antidote to government by a powerful few is governed by the organized, energized many. That's what this moment's about. And I want to tell you, one election won't fix everything. That's the truth. If you vote in this election, it's not as if suddenly poverty is eliminated, or all the jobs that left are coming back, or suddenly there's no discrimination. Women are always treated with respect. That's not how politics work. It's not like everything gets fixed all at once. But I tell you what, if you vote, things will get better. If you vote in this election, Wisconsin, it'll be a start. You've got to get started and then just keep on going, because the threat to our democracy doesn't just come from one person in the White House, or Republicans in Congress, or lobbyists in Washington, or the Koch brothers. The biggest threat to our democracy is our own indifference. The biggest threat to our democracy is us getting so cynical that we just stay home. We don't participate. Because that's how, in 2011, Republicans made Wisconsin one of the worst gerrymandered states in the country. In 2012, Democrats won a majority of votes in the state assembly, and somehow Republicans got 2/3 of the seats. It got rigged. The fix is in. I mean, think about that. Who's ever heard of that? You know that's not fair, but that's how the system operates. In this current election, all across the country, Democrats are going to have to win a lot more votes just to stay even, and even more votes after that to take over the Congress because of this gerrymandering tomfoolery. And that's why you've got to vote for Democrats up and down the ticket to break their grip, make our congressional districts fair. When you vote, not just for Tammy and Tony, when you vote for sheriff and district attorneys and state reps and secretaries of state and state treasurers, you've got the power to make sure our voting rights are protected. Our criminal justice system treats everybody equally under the law. When you vote, you have the power to make sure we strengthen laws that protect women in the workplace from harassment and discrimination and abuse, and to make sure that women are paid the same as men for doing the same job. When you vote, you have the power to make it a little bit easier for a student to afford college, and maybe a little bit harder for a crazy person to shoot up a classroom. When you vote, you have the power to make sure a family keeps its health insurance. You could save somebody's life. That power is in your hands if you vote. And if you get involved and you knock on some doors, you talk to your friends and convince some new neighbors and talk to that family member that is a little confused, and you get them to vote early for this entire incredible Wisconsin team, you know what's going to happen? Something powerful happens. Change begins to happen. Hope begins to happen. And with each new step we take in the direction of fairness and justice and equality and opportunity, with each new step, hope spreads a little bit more. It starts with you. Let's get to work.